Okay, we're going to make a fusion model of the 5-channel infrared sensor that we have for use with our Fastline Follower autonomous robot. This is the web page with the sensor array on it, and there's some good pictures you can see, which may help you in kind of understanding the layout of this. This is the view of the sensors where the sensor array where you can see the 5 individual modules. Okay, there's a closer view. We can see the slots clearly here, and then the 7 pins that are going to be used to connect the sensor to the Arduino. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to replicate this as close as we need to. We don't need to be 100% accurate, because, really, what's necessary is just the basics here. So we're not going to model the pins where they stick through the board. We're not going to model the chips here. Of course, you can model those features if you want to. That's fine. We're going to stick with the main components here. So the board, definitely, because we need to show the slots so that we can mount them properly to our chassis. I'm going to create the 5 sensor modules here because that's important for ground clearance or any kind of interference that we might need. And I'm going to go ahead and put the 7 pin connectors on our board as well, because I think that might be helpful for again, making sure that we have room for everything. But any of the smaller components here, we're just going to ignore those. And like I said, you can put those on if you want to. That would be fine. Okay. So let's move into our design then. Okay. So I'm going to start by saving it, right, first. So let's call it the IR sensor array. Okay. Again, this way we can initiate the automatic save features with Fusion. And the first thing I'm going to do is let's go ahead and sketch the basic outline for the part. So for this, again, we want to use the origin as much as possible. So I'm going to use the center rectangle, and we'll put that in here like this. All right. Now let's get some dimensions. Now, I already dimensioned this. I made a sketch with the dimensions for it. So I know that the width on this is 20 millimeters. You may want to dimension this yourself. Okay. So I'm not going to go through all the dimensions. You'll probably see them here as I go through them, but, I'm not going to go through all the dimensions and with the sketch and things like that. You can do that. So there's the basic outline of the board. Each corner, I'm going to go ahead and show the rounds on each corner. Each corner, I think, is about a 2 millimeter fillet. Okay. Radius 2. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in there just since I'm going to be extruding. I might as well do that as well. Do that here. I could always do it after I extrude the features, but I think it's a little bit easier in this case to do it here, simply because the extrusion is going to be so thin, it's going to be hard to pick that edge. Okay, so now we can put in the slot. The dimensions that I have for the slot are from end to end, so I'm going to use the overall slot feature. Okay. Not the center to center slot, because I don't have that dimension on my sketch. I just did an overall dimension. So we'll put that here, and then we'll go like this. And now we have to dimension it. So, the total width across here, whoops. Let's try that again. The total width across here is 3 millimeters. Okay. From end to end, right? Not from center to center, but from end to end. I have that as 21 millimeters. Okay. And it is 5 millimeters from the end here. And I have it about 1 millimeter off the end. Now, let me, of course, you know, I'm measuring this by eye. Some of these dimensions are going to be off by a little bit. That's just a given. But it's, you know, we don't have to replicate this exactly. If we're plus or minus, you know, I'm pretty sure that I'm plus or minus a half a millimeter or a millimeter. I think that's going to be fine. And really the main dimensions that we need are the slot and the overall size here. So of the board, those are the main dimensions. Okay. So I have one side of this in. I'm not gonna to get the right side in this case, I'm going to use the mirror feature. But in order to do that, I need to draw a center line. So I'm going to draw a center line through the part like this. Okay. And then I'm going to make that a construction line, right? I could make it a center line, but I think it's easier. Center line does some weird things with dimensions, so I don't want to deal with that. The construction line is fine for this case. All I really need is a mid line so that I can have a line to mirror around. Okay, you'll see. So we go to the mirror feature. It's asking us to select the objects. So I'm going to window those features right there. Now notice that I picked accidentally picked the fillet right in here, which I don't want to pick. So I think I'm going to have to no, I was able to select that and deselect that, right? By picking it, I deselected it. And I also don't want to pick these points as well. So I'm going to pick these and deselect these as well. I don't want to mirror those. I don't think it would be bad to mirror those, but it might cause problems with my with constraining the sketch. Now, let me also say this as far as constraining the sketch, fully constraining the sketch. You know, I'm not going to be as dogmatic about constraining the sketch here. I think my sketches should be constrained, but because we're kind of doing this on a customized project basis, we don't need to be as dogmatic about it. So now I can select my mirror line and I'll pick the midplane right here and it'll mirror that and I'll say okay and everything looks good. Okay. And I think that's about it. So let's finish the sketch here. Okay. And now I have a thickness of this to be about 1.5 millimeters thick. Okay. So I'm going to make this 1.5. And then there's our board. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and do the 5 sensor modules, and we'll put them on the top here. So we'll make a sketch on the top surface like this. And I'm going to, before I really get started, I'm going to put a center line in here again. Okay. And I'll make that a construction line. The reason why we make it a construction line or a center line, either one of these options again would work, is because it's not going to be picked up when we extrude or when we make a shape. So when we extrude or revolve or anything like that, the command ignores center lines or construction lines. So it's kind of handy that we don't have to deal with it. All right. Now I'm going to start by making the one right in the middle. Okay. And by my estimation, all right, the modules that I'm going to be creating here, these 5 sensor modules, are just slightly off of the front edge. Okay, just slightly off on the front edge. So I'm going to start by drawing them just about like that. Okay, slightly off. And then we can go ahead and get the dimensions in. This is going to be basically a rectangular shape, 5 millimeters by 10 millimeters. Okay. And it's just really, really close to being on the edge. All right. So maybe 0.25 millimeters off. Okay. I think that would be fine. If you made it coincident with the edge, right? If you use the collinear constraint and just made it coincident with it, I think that would be fine as well. In fact, I know it would be fine. All right. So we don't need to be, as I said, 100% accurate on this. We just want to get the most important features so that we can accurately replicate them for our chassis design and our robot design, so that we can notice any problems or interferences that we're going to have. Okay. So now I need to finish locating it. And of course, it's going to be centered on this. All right. And to center it, I'm going to pick this dimension and then divide it by 2. Everything looks good. All right. But I'm not done yet because I want to create a pattern here before I extrude it. Okay. I don't think it really matters whether you extrude it and then create the pattern or whether you create the pattern in the sketch and then extrude it. So you could probably do it either way, whichever way you're more comfortable with. In this case, I'm more comfortable with creating the pattern and then extruding all 5 of them. So I'm going to go over here to the rectangular pattern. We're going to pick these objects, and I want to create a total of 5. Okay. I'm going to go in 2 directions symmetrically. So let me zoom out a little bit so you can see what's going on. Everything's kind of in the way here. All right. And we can start to move it and we can see what we're getting to. Okay. Now, notice that the distance here is 44. And how is that being measured? Well, they're measuring it by the extent, right? So the total distance from the center here to the center on this rectangle on either the left or the right side. So now I'm going to go to spacing because that's what I have. Excuse me. My measure is that I have a 21 millimeter spacing on this. Okay, so I'm going to go with 21 millimeters. That's what I have on my sketch. And that's all I need to do. So I'll say okay. And then there we go. All right, so now I'll finish this sketch. And let's go to an isometric view. And let's go ahead and extrude this. So we can extrude all 5 of these. And we're going to extrude it by, I get these at about 4 millimeters tall. Okay. All right. Now, you may be thinking, well, aren't these modules separate from the board, right? Do we need to make an assembly where we have the board and then we have the modules are individual components? And again, technically that is correct, right? These are separate parts. So they should technically have, they should be represented by separate components. But for the purpose of what we're doing, it's not necessary. We're not, you could say that this is a subassembly. So we're kind of treating this separately. And it's a subassembly, in fact, that we're purchasing where it's already assembled. So I think it's going to be fine to do it this way. So we're going to join them, say okay, and there we go. All right. Now let's inspect this, make sure everything looks good. Of concern, I want to, these edges are a bit, we want to make sure that they clear everything, and they do. So I think that looks good. Okay. Now I do think that it's going to be good to show the little spheres on this. Now let me show you what I'm talking about in case you're wondering what I'm talking about. Let me pull this in, right? So each one of these modules, we can see they're chamfered on the top surface and on the 2 front edges. And they have, the sensors seem to have like little spheres or half spheres or whatever, that are going to be used to, pick up the light or the lack of light, or the infrared, fields. So we want, and those protrude a little bit. So I kind of feel like, to successfully avoid any interference when we mount this, and you know, it's going to be hanging over the track. So we want to have the full height of these. I think we need to show that. So let's do that. First, let's create chamfers on all these. Okay, so I'm going to chamfer this. And notice how I'm doing this. I'm picking the top surface, right? This is a way to chamfer all four sides of this, right? And I have this chamfer as a 1 millimeter chamfer. Okay. Again, an estimate, right? And then in the front here, we want to chamfer that as well. Okay. So chamfer, and we'll pick all these edges. Now, one of the things that you can say about doing all these together is, notice on the timeline, it's going to be one chamfer operation in the timeline. If I did each one individually, I would have 5 different chamfer operations. So that's just something to consider. You know, you might want, if you're building something, you might want to be to have individual chamfers in the timeline, or you might want to have them all at once, right? It's up to you. In this case, I'm just going to do them all together because I think that's fine. And now we want to handle the top. So I'm going to, you know, again, I can do the, I can use a pattern again. So I'm going to do the middle one here. And let's sketch on the top surface. Okay. And I want to draw a center line here. Okay. And I want to draw a center line. So notice when I'm picking a center line, I'm making sure that I'm showing the midpoint grip or snap point. That triangle means that I'm snapping to the midpoint. Okay. This is going to help me with the sketch. So I'll make this a center line and a center line. Okay. I'm going to we'll put a circle here, and I'm going to use a 2.5 diameter. I didn't really measure these. I just kind of eyeballed it, but I think 2.5 is pretty good, you know. And then distance across here. Let's get this to be, let's see, 2. I think 2 should be okay. Again, this is not critical, right? So we just want to get something in there to hold its place. One other thing you might have noticed when we looked at this was there looks like there's a little piece of plastic in between the two. So we're going to draw that as well. Okay. Actually, we're not going to draw it right now. We'll do that at another, on another sketch. Okay. But actually, I think, let me decrease this. Let me go to 1.5 millimeters and 1.5 millimeters. Do I want to go like that? No, you know, second thought, we're going to stick with 2. Okay. So we have those in there. All right. That's good enough. Let's finish that sketch. Okay. And let's zoom in on this. Now for these, I'm not going to do any kind of weird revolve or whatever to create this. I'm just going to use the sphere command, and I'm going to put the sphere, I'm going to locate it on this surface, right? And I'm going to snap to the point right there, which it doesn't seem to be picking up that point. So we'll move it, and then whoops, let's hit escape here. Okay, so let's go back to the sphere, and it's asking us to pick a plane, right? And so we can pick either inside here, it doesn't really matter. And we'll pick that as the plane, and then I'm going to move in here. Now, what I've found is that if you zoom in sufficiently, you can find that point. This is the center from my circle. This is really the reason why I put the circle there, just so I can get the center point. We could have used a point to do that, a point command, but I used the circle. And we're going to use, I'm going to use a radius, a diameter of 2.5, which I think is going to be okay. But notice that it defaults to cut. We don't want to cut. We want to join. So we effectively get a half sphere there. So we'll say okay. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Sphere. And we'll pick this. And then we'll zoom in until we snap to that. And then 2.5, and we'll just join. And then we look at it like this. And let's have a look at it, see if it's all good. Now, my sketch is still on, so I'm going to freeze my sketch. And yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now let's get the that center piece of plastic. Again, you know, this is probably overkill, but you know, some of you might be thinking, well, how can we do that? So let's go ahead and do that right here. So the first thing I'm going to need, I'm going to draw this from this point of view, from a sketch from this point of view, right? So I can draw the profile and then extrude it like that. But in order to do that, I need to find the plane that I'm going to draw it on. And the plane that I'm going to, the sketch plane is going to be the midpoint between this surface right here and this surface right here. So I need to create that midplane. So we go to midplane here under construct, midplane. I choose this surface, and then I choose this surface, and it gives me the plane halfway between those two. Okay, and you can see that right there. Okay. Now we go to sketch, and we'll pick that plane as our sketch plane. I'm going to go ahead and slice this so I can see inside. Okay, and I'm going to project this geometry here. I'm going to switch to bodies, and I'm going to project all of these bodies onto it. Right. So we can pick up those points. Now this is just, you know, I did not measure this, so this is just a rough eyeball, right? I'm just going to go, I'm going to pick a point somewhere out here. I'm going to pick a point somewhere here and somewhere here, and then I'm going to go down, right? Completely. I am going to avoid the midpoint right here. I don't know, but I don't want to pick up a snap point inadvertently, so I kind of like to avoid those. So I'll pick out right here. Okay. Now let's get this all, you know, set up. I want to make this line and the sphere tangent. Okay. And, you know, I'm just kind of making up these dimensions. So I'm going to make this 2 millimeters long. I want to make it equal from this end to this end. I want to make it half of that, so like so. And then what's happening over here? Why don't we just do tangent here as well? So I'll go tangent there to there. Okay, that's fine. And I'll go tangent here to here. And that's it. It's fully constrained. That's good enough for me. I think that that's fine. Let's finish the sketch and let's look at what we created. So there we are. Oh, you know what? One thing I need is I need a bottom line across here. All right, so let's go back and edit that sketch. Sorry about that. Let's slice it again. And let's make sure that we draw a line from, oops, no, I'm dimensioning. Let's draw a line from this point to this point. All right, so now we can finish our sketch and look at it. Right, and now you can see the black line, right? So there's my shape that I'm going to be extruding. Now it is kind of, we are going to have to pay attention to the shapes, the closed shapes, because we have a lot of stuff going on here, okay? But I think if we are careful, we should be able to do it. Now this is, let's look at this again. This is a really thin feature, right? I think it's about 0.5 millimeters thick, so it's not going to be very thick at all. So let's go to extrude, and we're going to pick carefully. We're going to pick all these And particularly down here, we have to make sure we get that, or else we'll get some weird geometry. And get down here and get that. All right, so I think I got everything. Now for this, what we're going to do, the direction is going to be symmetric 2 ways, and we'll do the whole length, and we'll do 0.5 millimeters, and that looks fine, and we're going to join it, and we're going to say okay. All right, and it looks big and thick here, right? But remember, we're really zoomed in, so there we are. All right. If you don't like that, you can do your own thing, or you can just ignore it. That's fine. But now we have that. We need to recreate it or pattern it for the other ones. So let's go to Create Pattern, and we're going to do a rectangular pattern. So for this, because we're picking the 2 half spheres, domes, and the little, I don't know what you want to say, the piece of plastic in between, we're going to pick an object type of features. And then we can go down here and we can actually pick these features. So I'm going to pick down on the timeline, I'm going to pick the 2 spheres, and then I'm going to pick the extrusion. Okay. So I got all 3 of those, right? The axes, that's the direction that we're patterning these in. And the direction that we're patterning them, I'm going to pick the red axes here, right? So because I just want to pull it in the direction of the red axes. So I'm going to pick the red axes here. And then this is going to have the same number of features as the blocks, right? Which is a total of 5. And we're going to use the spacing option here, and down for direction we're going to go symmetric in axis 1, and this is axis 1, so we get those, and the spacing should be identical as we had for the boxes, the rectangles, which is 22 millimeters, and that looks visually, that looks good, so we're going to say okay, and then there we go. Okay, so far so good. Okay, the last thing that we really need to do is to do the pins. So let's look at this again, just to see what we're trying to create. There we go, right there. Now, by my calculations or my measuring, I got these as I figured these are 2 millimeters wide. Each one of these blocks is 2 millimeters wide and 2 millimeters thick. And it extends 2 millimeters from the board. Okay, so they're basically 2 millimeter cubes, right? I'm not going to create them as individual cubes stuck together. I'm just going to do a 2 millimeter wide, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 millimeter long bar. Okay, again, we don't need that detail. If you want to add that detail, you're more than welcome to do that. All right, so let's do that. Now, let's remember that these pins are on the opposite side of this feature of the sensor modules, right? So we need to do them on this side here. All right, don't make the mistake that I did earlier and put them on the same side, because you can't really flip them easy. Okay, so let's go to Sketch on this surface. Okay, and yeah, you guessed it, I'm going to draw a center line. Right, there might be an easier way to do this, to always have a persistent center line, but I like doing it this way. It seems to work fine. All right. And the sensor the little pin connections are on the side of the slots, so we want to put them right in here. And we'll use the rectangle, and I'll slot them in like this. Okay. Like I said, I figured that they were about 2 millimeters wide, and this is going to be 14 millimeters long, 14, right? We want it centered, so I'm going to dimension from here to the to the center. Whoops, where did it go? Right there. And we're going to pick this and go divide by 2. Nope, that's not what I want. Let's go back here. Let's undo that. Sorry, we don't want to do it like that. We want to do, we want to line this up. Okay, sorry. Let's line this up. Let's use the horizontal, vertical. So we'll pick this point and we'll line them up. No, that's not what we want to do either. Let's undo that. All right, sorry about that. I'm having a little bit of a brain freeze. This is what we want to do. We want to go from the center line here that I drew to the edge right here. And we want to make that not 1. We want to make it this number, the 14, but I'm picking the dimension D40 divided by 2. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. That was, got a little bit confused on that. Let's bring this dimension back in there so that we can see it. And let's zoom in again. And again, the offset that I had for this pin piece is really, really close to the edge. So I'm just going to dimension the distance from here to here to be about 0.25, you know, just super duper close. You can make it collinear with that if you wanted to. That is, they're the same line. That's fine. I don't think that would be a real big problem. But that's it. Okay, so we finish that sketch, and then let's extrude it, and we're going to extrude it up by 2 millimeters, and there we go. Okay, now the last little bit is the pins. Now you may feel like it's not necessary to do the pins, but I'm going to do them anyway just to kind of show you how you can create them. But again, I think this is probably overkill. You probably don't need these pins. Let me save it. But here's how I would do it. Okay. So first of all, I estimate, I'm not measuring the pins really, but I estimate that the pins are going to be 0.5 millimeter square, right? The pins are here. Let's look at the design here. The pins are, they seem to be kind of square in cross section, and I have them to be about 0.5 millimeters square, so 0.5 millimeters wide on all sides. Right? I don't think there's a better view of these. Yeah, that's it. And then we'll talk about how we're going to draw those. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want to draw a cross section, and I'm going to draw it right in the midpoint of this. So let's sketch on this surface. Okay, and let's zoom in. All right, and let's get a line, a center line. You know, you know by now what we're going to do. This line will be a construction line, and now I want to draw a square right in the middle there, and I'm going to be centering that. Okay, so first let's get the dimensions in here. This is going to be, whoops, come on, let's get that right. No, let me try that again. Dimension, we'll pick this edge right here. There we go. And we'll make it 0.5. And we'll pick this edge and we'll make it 0.5. Okay. And now we want to center it, but we want to center it both horizontal and vertically. So let's center it horizontally first. So we're going to go from the center line to this edge right there. I know you can't see it, so I'm going to pull down there. And we're going to pick this dimension, divide by 2. Okay. And then we need to center it vertically. So again, we're going to, oh, you know what? I don't have this vertical line in there. So let's draw a construction line from the midpoint here to the midpoint here. Okay. And we'll put that construction line in there. And now we can zoom in and we can dimension. Yeah, let me see if I can pull it out. There we go. All right. And that's going to be this number divided by 2. Okay. So we have that centered. That's the cross section. All right. So that's all we're going to do there. Finish that sketch. Okay. Now what we need to do, because in order to create this, I'm going to use the sweep command. So I need a cross section. and I need a profile, or the line along which it's going to sweep. Okay? So I have my cross section. Now I need the line along which it's going to sweep. And in order to do that, I need to create first a midplane going through the center of this board. So let's go to midplane, and we're going to pick this edge of the board, and we're going to pick this edge of the board, and we're going to define our midpoint so you can see where our midplane is. Our midplane is right smack in the middle of that little square that I just drew. Okay? Now that's going to be our sketch plane. There we go. All right. Now you can, whoops, there we go. So you can see that we're bisecting the square that I just drew. Okay. So, let us project this geometry on there. Okay. And I want to pick up this geometry as well. So there we go. We'll pick that, and we'll go ahead and get that also. There we go. Okay. So you can see that there. All right. So now I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to pick the midpoint here because I know that the midpoint is in the center of that square that I just drew. I'm going to draw a line up, and I'm going to draw a line over. Okay. Now, by my rough measuring, this distance is about 7 millimeters, I believe. Yep, about 7 millimeters, 7 or 8 millimeters. We'll go with 7 millimeters. Okay. And I have it from the bottom of the board to the line, to the pin, is about 5 millimeters. Now we have to take into account that the pin is 0.5 millimeters in cross section, but again, you know, that's getting kind of nitpicky. So should this be 4.5? Yeah, probably, but I'm just going to go with 5. It's not going to be, whoops. There we go, 5. It's not going to be a big deal. Okay. And then there is a curve on this, right? So we need to replicate that with a fillet here, right? And how much do we want? Do we want 1? It's a pretty good fillet, so maybe 2 is too. Oh, see, 2 is too much. So let's try 1.5. Whoops. Let's try 1.5. Here, let me undo this. Here, let's try this. 1.5. Yeah, that's not going to work either. So I think it's just too. I think we'll have to leave it at 1, which I think is fine, right? You see, I'm getting an error because it's getting into the shape like this. So that's all we need, right? All I've drawn is a straight line, vertical line, and a horizontal line, dimensioned them, and then put a fillet in here. Let's finish that sketch. That's going to be the profile. So when I move into this view right here, okay, I'm going to, now notice I have 2 sketches on, right? I need the cross section, the sketch with the cross section in it, which is sketch 8, and I need the sketch 9, which has the profile in it, right? The path. So now I go to create and sweep, and I'm going to pick the profile, and then my path is going to be this line right here. And there we go. Everything looks good. We're going to join it. We say okay, and then there we go. Okay. Now, of course, we need a total, excuse me, of 7 of these, but it's not a problem because I have it right here as a feature. So I can go to my pattern, pick a rectangular pattern. I'm on features for my object type. I pick this feature. My axes, I'm going to pick in the red direction, right? All right, and I need a total of 7. There's 7 pins, so let's pick 7. And my space in between them, I'm just going to eyeball. Whoops. I don't want it like that. I want symmetric, right? And so I can kind of eyeball it and see that looks pretty good. Let's get a view here. That looks pretty good, right? It's kind of equally spaced. So that's a distance of 2 on our spacing, right? You can adjust it as you need to. So we'll say okay, and then there we go. All right. So there is my IR sensor array. All right. We can plop that down into our model. We have that ready to introduce into our assembly for the chassis. It is, we got the slots, what we really need to attach it with, the screws, and then we have the sensor modules, which of course are going to be pointed downward. So really, this is going to be arranged like this on our chassis, right? Aimed downward. But that's it. All right. So I hope that helps you out. The dimensions, you can adjust those dimensions as you see fit. You can add or subtract more detail or any of the other detailed features that you want to on yours. You could even add colors to this, to make it look more realistic. All right. But that's all we have for the sensor array. Save it, and then you can put it into your assembly model when you're ready to. All right, see you in the next video.